I'm Jonathan Cohen at Cohen & Winters. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about a question that we get asked probably more than any other question, which is, if I've been out for dinner with my loved one and a police officer pulls me over late at night, should I blow? And the answer to that is a very lawyerly answer: it depends. But I want to give you a little bit of information so that you can make an informed decision should you or a loved one ever find yourself in that unfortunate circumstance. So firstly, you should understand that there in New Hampshire is something called the implied consent law. This basically means that if you're driving on the roads in New Hampshire, you have impliedly consented to giving a breath or a blood test or submit to physical tests when asked by a law enforcement officer. If you refuse, the DMV has the right to suspend your license. That's separate from any court-imposed suspension based on a conviction, either after trial or by plea. So there's essentially two different entities that can take your license. The first thing I want to talk to you about is, so the officer might ask you if you want to actually blow into a little handheld device at roadside. This is called a preliminary breath test. You should always refuse that test unless you've had nothing to drink and you have nothing to worry about. Those tests are wildly inaccurate, and they can give artificially high readings. Additionally, if you refuse that test, that cannot be held against you, nor can your license be suspended based on that refusal. So you have much to lose and little to gain by agreeing to that. But let's say that you've refused that and the officer decides he or she is going to arrest you. You get brought back to the station, you get booked, and then you get asked to either submit to a breath or a blood test. What do you do now? This is one where if you refuse, the DMV can suspend your license and will. Also, if you submit to this test and it results in a BAC, blood alcohol content, of over a 0.08 or a 0.02 if you're under 21, they will suspend your license. So there's different things to think about here. One is that even if you agree to this testing and you come up with a BAC of under a 0.08, let's say it's close, it's a 0.07 or a 0.06 even, the DMV won't take your license, but the prosecutor can still elect to prosecute you even though you have a BAC that's under a 0.08. They can use a different standard which is impaired to any extent by drugs or alcohol or some combination thereof. You should also consider that if you refuse, not only will the DMV take your license, but that refusal is admissible evidence against you at your trial. That is, the judge can infer that you refused because you thought that you would test over. But at the end of the day, you need to think about whether or not to take this test. And what I recommend is this. If you are fairly certain, or you know that you will test under a 0.08, you've had one glass of wine, you've had one beer, and you had a meal, then I would say take the test, because it's going to be exculpatory. It's going to show that you have a very low BAC, and that is evidence that will help in terms of the prosecutor deciding whether to prosecute you and will help your lawyer defend you. If you think that you might blow over, or you know you will blow over, then you should seriously think about refusing, because that evidence can be used against you. And your lawyer may have more to do to defend you if there is not a BAC. The one other thing that I would say to you is the DMV suspension will run concurrently at the same time with any court suspension. If you give a breath or a blood sample, it will run consecutive to any court-imposed suspension if you refuse. So there's obviously a lot of different things to think about, And it's a difficult process to go through in your mind if you're in this situation that you've never been in before. And it's very nerve-wracking, and it's embarrassing, and it's scary. The bottom line is that here at Cohen & Winters, we help people in all these various types of situations frequently. And I highly recommend that you consider contacting competent counsel and engaging a lawyer to help you if you have to deal with this unfortunate situation.